reshape what wrestling should be.
Heading to the place where real professional wrestling lives.
It's a new day.
Now is the next chapter.
Heading to the new age.
Here they go. The fans, listen to them.
AEW is constantly evolving.
Feel what a champion brings.
Oh my God.
We're taking things to the next level.
The best talent, the best minds. Now is the next chapter.
It's finished tonight, and you know what that means. I can't believe what I just saw. I can watch matches like this every day. Dynamite, no doubt about that.
Let's go.
Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Tony. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Great. Good morning to you, Jeff. I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Such a thrill to meet you. I've met Kurt Kerkorian, I've met Ted Turner, and now you're in a very exclusive club. So it's a thrill to meet you.
That's great. Well, thank you, Jeff. This is awesome. Thanks for having me on.
You know, you have so many titles for AEW wrestling. How do you fit them all on a business card?
I don't actually carry a card, but I try to jam them into my social media profiles. But I wear a lot of hats, but I love it. I love booking wrestling matches and telling stories and signing wrestlers. And that's one thing we've done a lot of in recent years is sign wrestlers. And we built the best roster in wrestling where you could watch it every Wednesday night on TBS with AEW Dynamite and every Friday night on TNT with AEW Rampage. And I just love wrestling so much. And I love wrestling fans because I am one. So to be able to put this much great wrestling into the world, it's awesome.
And you became a fan at a young age, you know, seeing Hulk Hogan on the A-Team, I understand.
Yeah, and also as much as that, but even more so really Sergeant Slaughter on G.I. Joe. He was the host of G.I. Joe, and he was also one of the cartoon characters, and he was one of the main characters. And then in real life, he was a pro wrestler. He wasn't quite as strapping as the cartoon version of Sergeant Slaughter with a barrel chest, but he was a great wrestler. And I realized those are real people. Sergeant Slaughter, Hulk Hogan are real people, and started to follow wrestling a little bit closer, and then learned there was more than one wrestling company. Wrestling was not just one place. And now here we are again. Wrestling's not just one place. There's multiple wrestling, and it's very fitting. Sting is one of the big stars still that hooks people in, and very fitting Sting now will be not just on TNT, but also on TBS. And Sting represents such an important part of the tradition of wrestling. Sting on TNT and TBS, his match is being announced by Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. It fits like a glove. And we've also brought back so many of the great free agent stars in wrestling, whether it's CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, or some of the top women stars in wrestling. And now we have really, I think, the best roster anybody's got. It didn't happen overnight. We started with a roster of great wrestlers who'd proven themselves around the world, and Chris Jericho was a flagship star for us. And a big moment was when Jon Moxley, who's lived out in Las Vegas, where I think you're at, is a legendary wrestler himself who came over and gave us a lot of credibility. And since then, the roster has gotten bigger and better. We have the youngest audience, the best young wrestlers, and over 41 million people around the world watched AEW last year. And now to be able to bring Dynamite to TBS on Wednesdays and bring Rampage every Friday to TNT, it's a dream come true for me as a fan, but it also means a lot to me because I am a fan, and to know that there's all these people that can count on us on a Wednesday for Dynamite on TNT and a Friday for Rampage. Sorry, it's going to take some getting used to saying Wednesday Dynamite on TBS, but now we've officially made the move. And Friday on TNT with Rampage. This is a dream come true for me, man.
Well, you know, AEW flourished during the pandemic. How did you manage that? Because you had limited to no crowds, but crowds are essential for wrestling.
Well, the first week I came up with the idea of putting the wrestlers who weren't in the matches, every wrestler I could get around the ring to create an audience. And people enjoyed it. And it was very different than watching the alternative. Our competitor was running empty arena shows. And I stayed with that at first and kept the wrestlers at ringside through the pandemic for several months. We stayed on the air through the pandemic. debuted some stars, including the late great Mr. Brody Lee and Matt Hardy in the pandemic, and we're able to keep fans interested. And frankly, I told people this is voluntary. You don't have to come to the wrestlers. So we had a small crew, and I built around that crew, and then people started to come back as we got deeper into the pandemic. Our competition through the pandemic, then a few months later, they went to a fan wall, a virtual wall of fans like you saw in other sports, TV screens. And I thought, let's bring wrestling back with live fans safely. And we did it. We had no COVID transmissions by going into an outdoor amphitheater and spacing people out where each seating section, a family or a group of friends could sit in like what we called a pod. And it would be like a drive-in movie. You had your own section of seats in this case, and there was no one near you. You're outdoors, and it was great. And it brought the fans back to pro wrestling. And there was months and months where that was the only place you could watch pro wrestling anywhere in the world where the fans were cheering the matches.
Well, several #1 finishes since April. Congratulations. You're doing something right.
Thank you very much. Since April 14th, we have had a number of finishes. April 14th was the first time AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite ever ranked as the #1 show. And since then, we have had a number of them. And now moving Wednesday nights to TBS, we keep that great audience. Again, huge network, but it's a different network with TBS, new fans, but still keeping that presence every Friday on TNT. Also really huge for us with Rampage. And Rampage also has had some great finishes. We had one of the biggest moments in recent wrestling television with the debut of CM Punk at the First Dance. And I'm always willing and ready and excited to put big matches and big stories on the Friday show on Rampage. So having both shows where you never know what's going to happen and you accept that there's going to be great wrestling, I think is something that the fans really, a lot of them cherish and look forward to. That's why we built such a great, loyal audience, especially young fans, which is the hardest thing to get nowadays. We have a lot of them.
Absolutely. And Tony, Vegas is the hottest city in the country right now. We got the Super Bowl coming in a few years, the Pro Bowl, Major League Baseball they're talking about now, hockey. Any interest in doing an event with AEW in Las Vegas in the near future?
Yes, absolutely. We'll be back Memorial Day weekend. We started in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, and we're going to come back to Las Vegas again. We did the fastest sellout in the history of Las Vegas for professional wrestling with our first ever show. We've never even been on television or anything. We did a pay-per-view as a startup show. It was a huge success. It was the first pay-per-view by an alternative wrestling company to do over 100,000 pay-per-view buys in almost 2 decades. And from when we did it, now over 2 decades, actually, from now. So it's great. And Las Vegas will be back there at Memorial Day and hopefully every Memorial Day weekend in May, bringing AEW Double or Nothing on pay-per-view, our original show where it all started.
Well, Tony, congratulations on all your success. Las Vegas thanks you. I thank you. And let's talk again soon.
Hopefully that would be great. Thanks for having me on to promote Wednesday Night Dynamite and Friday Night Rampage.
Absolutely. Take care. Thank you.